Does he promise you that when you are dead and have become dust and bones, then ye will be brought forth away, away with what you are promised? There is only our life in the world. We die and we live, and we shall not be raised. And that's what some, that's the representation of some in Surah 23, ayat 37 through 39. Now, I cannot say which of the Sabian sects are those mentioned in Al-Quran. Of course, Al-Quran addresses whole groups. People think of, specifically, it must have been this group. And, if you look into the language of the Arabic itself, things are broader than a lot of people try to say. When Yazid bin Unaysa says, the Persian apostle will follow, nor can I say which are those that are found in Haran and Wasit. One thing, however, is clear. According to Shahrastani, the Sabians of the Quran differ in their faith from those of Haran. The Haranians were remnants of Mesopotamia. They were polytheistic, and star worship had the chief place in their religion, as in the worship of older Babylon and Syrian faiths. They were regarded as such by al-Muslimin, so that under al-Mamun they sheltered themselves under that name, Sabians, that they may be entitled to the tolerance which the Sabians of the Quran have, because they were considered among people of the book. Another thing to be noticed is that there is a close resemblance between the belief that the Sabian sect, which Ash-Shahrastani calls al-Qarbaniya, and that of the Yezidi sect. Such is, in the main, the religion of the Persian apostle, and is logically the religion of Yazid bin Unaysa, which announces the coming of such a messenger. We may conclude, therefore, that the founder of the Yezidi sect believed in God and the day of resurrection, that he perhaps honored the angels and the stars, and that he was neither polytheistic nor a true believer in a prophet of Islam. This last point is referred to explicitly in the statement quoted, that Yazid associated himself with those of the people of the book who recognized Muhammad as a prophet, though they did not become his followers. This is the negative aspect, so to speak, of bin Unaysa's religious views. He is said to have claimed that the followers of the ordinances agreed with him. This statement tends to indicate that he might have accepted some phases of the Islamic faith, and the fact that he belonged to al-Khawarij implies that he was one of those who were condemning and rejecting Ali for parleying with Muawiyah, the first of the Umayyad line, line, and submitting his claims to arbitration. Such are, in brief, the fundamental elements of the religious system of one who may be held responsible for the rise of the sect in question. Sect of Yazidi, but as we've seen for other reasons, we can say that this goes back much further. There can be no doubt, it seems to me, that the Yezidis are followers of Yazid bin Unaysa. The statement of our authority, Muhammad Ash-Shahrastani, is so clear that it can bear no other interpretation, and what is far more important comes from the pen of one who is considered of the highest authority among the Arab scholars on questions relating to philosophical and religious sects. In his biographical work, Ibn Chalaqan speaks of his profound scholarship in the highest terms. Ash-Shahrastani, a dogmatic theologian of the Asharite sect, the 12ers, Ashura tenors, was distinguished as an imam and a doctor of the law. He displayed the highest abilities as a jurisconsult. The Kitab al-Malal Wan Nahal, Treatise on Religions and Sects, is one of his works on scholastic theology. He remained without an equal in that branch of science, and Muhammad Asharastani, from 467 to 549 of Al-Hijra, which was 1074 to 1133 of the Common Era, was a contemporary of Adi, 465 to 555. Al-Hijra, which was 1072 to 1162 of the Common Era. Yet he makes no allusion to him when he refers to the rise of this most interesting sect, nor does he make mention of any other supposed founder except the one he records. For these reasons I accept the historical assertion of this distinguished author. Well, just like Christianity with its many sects, are we to say that Martin Luther was the founder of Christianity? Because not even the Catholicism kind of changed a little bit after that. I am of the opinion that the Yezidis received their name from Yazid bin Unaysa, their founder, as a Kharijite subsect. Khawarij. So what's the Khawarij? What's plural for Khawarij? I don't remember. Subsect in the early period of Islam. That attracted by Sheikh Adi's reputation, they joined to his movement and took him for their chief religious teacher. In that early history of the sect and of Adi, many Christians, Persians, and Al-Muslimin united with it. That the large survivals or absorptions of beliefs or customs are to be found in modern Yezidism. In other words, the actual religion of the Yezidis is syncretism, in which it's easier to recognize Yazidi, Christian, Muslim, especially Sufism, and other elements. Now, again, we're talking about one sect, but perhaps people, they didn't want to convert to Islam, so they accepted a Sufi leader, but they took some other things with them, worship of idols and a bunch of other stuff. But like the Master, they believed in the true God and the resurrection, or at least what they asserted to be the true God. Honor the angels and the stars. Well, if they're worshiping, they're worshiping them, whatever you call it, that. You can mention things without worshiping them, but it does go beyond that. Disbelief in the mission of Muhammad and ignore Ali. Regard every sin, small and great, as idolatry or infidelity, and expect the appearance of a prophet from Persia. The fact of their connection with such a religious leader, the prophet from Persia, by the way, is a Dajjal, in reality, that they're looking for. Or you can say it goes back before Zarathustra, and they didn't accept him either. So they didn't accept Muhammad, they didn't accept Zarathustra, they didn't accept Jesus, except through the Christian guys and the various other things. The fact of their connection with such a religious leader explains the reason why they're hated by both the Sunnites and the Shiites. The follower of bin Muawiyah can only be despised by the latter, but the believer in such a heretical one as the son of Unaysa are necessarily condemned by the former also, for he was, as I have already stated, anti-Islamic, anti-Muhammad, anti-Ali. And it is worth remembering also that the fourth caliph is more honored among al-Muslimin of Persia than his son Hussein is. Well, actually, no. Ali, Hassan, and Hussein were honored more among the Persians than the second and third caliph. But his son, the fourth caliph, yes, honored more than the next two of who the Shia consider imams. And is consequently any contempt. I messed that up, but I responded thinking maybe it said something else. yeah, Ali, then Hussein, then anyways. Any contemptuous attitude towards the father will give rise to more bitter feeling on the part of his followers than the murder of the son would occasion. One is the question, however, which does not appear to be very easy to answer, namely how the Yezidis came to trace their origin to Yezid bin Muawiyah and not to Yezid bin Unaysa. 3 explanations are given. One is that their ignorance led them to mistake the former for the latter, and they had identified many of their sheikhs with angels and deities, shayateen min al jinn, really, and taking it back to the ancient Persian roots, we can see what goes on there. Among, the fire beings uniting with the clay beings, all that sort of stuff. Among ignorant people, as these are without record, and without one who can read, the occasion of such an error is not strange. Another answer is that they intentionally made the identification in order to escape the persecution of the Sunnites, among whom most of them lived. Though specious, this idea is not tenable, for it is not their habit to deny the origin for the sake of safety. Even in that case, they would still be hated by the Shiites. The third theory is that they have a notion that they are descended from a noble personage, and the second caliph being such a personage, their ignorance led them to take him for their founder. And the identity of the 2 names, of course, helped much towards the formation of the legend. It is to be noticed that the religion of this Yezid contained, from its inception, a fundamental doctrine which appealed to those of Persia more than it did to the ignorant of Arabia. It is, in its very structure, it insulted the latter country by despising its prophet. On the other hand, it expressed sympathy with a prophet from Persia and with his religion. The declaration magnified Persia and its inhabitants and gave them preeminence, therefore making an impression on the attitude of the people towards Yezidism. Therefore, they looked on it not as foreign, but as a native cult. The entertaining of such a view consequently led many fire or devil worshippers and the followers of Zoroastrianism to embrace the new religion. And if the predicted teacher arose, we can imagine the great success which he must have had among his countrymen. This fact not only accounts for the existence of traces of old Persian religion, but gives reasons why Kurdish predominates over the Arab element in Yezidism. Well, if you tie it to older cults for that, and say perhaps a bunch of things, but the new sect appears to have existed as a very loose organization after the death of its founder. This looseness put them in a condition to follow anyone who would exhibit some qualifications for leadership, and therefore, when they heard about Adi, they naturally flocked to him, and it is very likely that entertaining the idea of a coming prophet, as they still do, they might have thought him the promised one. What might have added to the confirmation of this notion was his fame as a saint, to whom a number of miracles were attributed. Even the lions and the serpents, which lived in his neighborhood and paid him frequent visits, were endowed, it is said, with supernatural sweetness. And even before the Avestan implication of this, to which we get the New Year, everything happens after that point, you could say, and then surrendered in Arabic and all that other stuff and put into terms of Sheikh Adi, perhaps. But the lion and the serpent are both examples of the human being, which lived in his neighborhood and paid frequent visits, were endowed, it is said, with supernatural sweetness. Okay. From what we know of Adi's movement, we have sufficient reason to conclude that many al-Muslimin and Christians followed him. The historians of both faiths bear witness to the fact that Adi's reputation was widespread, and that people of every condition followed him. The Nestorian bishop of Arbela, whom Yasin al-Umari quotes, asserts that innumerable multitudes flock to him, deplores the situation of the Christian church resulting from this uprising, and complains of the possession by the sheikh of a monastery belonging to his denomination. Moreover, as has been shown, there exist among the Yezidis certain al-Muslimin and Christian practices which cannot be accounted for on any other ground, since, as far as we know their character, they make no compromise in matters of religion. We can account for this if we trace it further back than this, and then we find out that certain things attributed to, that's not fundamental Islam, but perhaps conservative Islam, actually started with the Yazidi. Certain Christian practices don't really start with Jesus or John the Baptist, or even Paul. Perhaps Paul got stuff, but Paul seems to have gotten stuff that could have came from the Yezidis. The Hindus, reincarnation can be traced coming from this area west. First it went to the Greeks and the ancient Egyptians, and then it went over towards India. Not only the Yazidi, Persian, al-Muslimin, and Christian elements are to be found in modern Yezidism, but there are many remains of old religions which find expression in the devil worshippers of today. Such is the notion of the sacredness of the number 7, an idea which belongs to the common stock of the ancient inhabitants of Mesopotamia. The Yezidis have 7 sun jugs. Each have 7 burners. Cosmology shows that God created 7 angels, which they took as gods. By angels, again, we're talking jinn, under shayateen min al jinn, under shaitan, as the Vestan calls him, cast out of a place. And he was either said to be the leader of 7, or he was the leader of 7, the 7th being, the first and the last basically being him. Their principal prayer is the appeal to God through 7 sheikhs. The scepter engraved on the front of the temple of their great saint has 7 branches. See, perhaps they're putting Sufism in these terms, of a sheikh worshipping type of Sufism into these terms. This reminds us at once of the Sabians, who adored 7 entities or angels, who directed the course of 7 planets. The 7 days of the week were dedicated to their respective entities. Moreover, we note in the Babylon Assyrian poem, the 7 gates through which Ishtar descended to the land without return. Likewise, the number 7 played an important part in the religious system of Israel. Now, worship of Ishtar, among some of these themes, predates the calendar that we're looking at and celebration of Easter and all that stuff. But we're looking at sort of the Yazidi tend to have sort of a deistic system represented by the peacock of the 7 feathers, and this was made in lead, and this goes back further than what we think the Yazidi were supposed to be. Likewise, the number 7 played an important part in the religious system of Israel. 7 branches, 12 on each branch. The Gohataya, kind of connected to that. Further, like the Haranians, the modern Shatan Parasat worship the sun and the moon at the rising and setting. The sun was worshipped also in Canaan, 1 Samuel 6:9. The horses of the sun were worshipped in the temple at Jerusalem, 2 Kings 25:5 and 11. The worship of the host of heaven, the sun, the moon, the planets, were found in Judea. In Babylon, there were at least 2 shrines to Shamash, the sun entity. One at Sippar and the other at Larsa. And remember, I did a thing about the black sun and the white sun demons, but other survivals of the ancient religions found in Yezidism are the worship of birds, the special importance attached to New Year because of its bearing on individual welfare by the reason of the good or evil decision of the entities rendered them, and the belief in occurrences of nuptials in the heavens. Again, this could be at some point in prehistory the origin of what we say Easter is, because it's not Ostara, it's not Beltane, it's in between. Moreover, many religious beliefs of the pre-Quranic Arabs survive among modern Yezidis, such as the belief in sacred wells, in connection with sanctuaries found in all parts of the Semitic region, the most conspicuous of which is that of Mecca. Gifts were cast in this holy water of Zamzam as they were cast in the sacred wells of other places. When the grandfather of Muhammad, Abd al-Muttalib, cleaned out the well, he found 2 golden gazelles and a number of swords. The water of such holy springs was believed to possess healing power and was carried home by pilgrims, as the waters of Zamzam now is. It's used as a means, definitely. There's certain prayers that are said over it. An impure person, furthermore, dared not approach the sacred waters. A woman in her uncleanness was afraid for her child's sake to bathe in the holy water of the sanctuary of Dusaras. Well, Islam, for example, distinguishes that. The post-childbirth keep away, the menstrual keep away, but uncleanliness is not listed as najis. For example, junub is different than najis. According to Ibn Hisham, a woman who adopts Islam breaks with their entities by purifying herself in this pool. This is taken to mean that her act was a breach of the ritual of the spot, and the pilgrims changed their clothes when they entered the sacred precinct. Another common practice at the time of the emotional ignorance was the worship of holy trees. According to Tabari, there was a date palm at Najran. It was adored at an annual feast when, hung all around it with fine clothes and women's ornaments, a similar tree to which the people of Mecca resorted annually, and hung upon it weapons, garments, ostrich eggs, and other things, is spoken of in the tradition of the Prophet under the name of Dat Anwat, or the tree to hang things on. Uzzah was believed to reside in a tree, according to Yaqut. The tree at Hudaybiyah, mentioned in the Quran, was visited by Surah 48:18, was visited by pilgrims who expected to derive blessing from it, until it was cut down by Umar, lest it should be worshipped like Alat and Al-Uzza, and Manat, the third, were considered to be the chief of the Nakala. The Order of Nine Angles talks about the Nakala, and so there's an Arabic origin between these entities over a particular palm branch as their main sanctuary, palm grove. Okay. It was considered deadly to pluck a twig from such sacred trees. The prevalence of stone worship is another sign existing before the Quran was revealed, and noteworthy is the theory advanced by al-Muslimin writers to account for its origin. According to Ibn Hisham, the beginning of this was that the Meccans, when their land became too narrow for them to spread over the country, they took stones from their sanctuary, the Kaaba, out of reverence for their temple, and they set them up whenever they formed a settlement, and they walked around them as they used to go about the holy house. This led them at last to worship every stone that pleased their fancy. But interesting enough, the black stone in Mecca and its fragments per se were never, there's not any evidence of that being worshipped. It is to be noticed, furthermore, that polydemonism, the belief in male and female powers and spirits, is the most characteristic feature of the old nomad religions. We find out that people suck when entering an area, sook the refuge of the jinn of the place. Not all jinn are demons, by the way, but feature of the old. Many traces of this belief have been preserved in the Old Testament and also in the popular religion of the Syria and Palestine of today. There are many instances in the Old Testament of the belief in powers inhabiting springs, trees, stones. And I've got a word in the Lizuvuma for spirit of a place or thing. So we may refer to the sacred wells at Kadesh, Genesis 14:7, at Beersheba, Genesis 21, 28, 30, 31, to the sacred oracular tree at Shechem. Anything can be used as an oracle, really. Genesis 12:6, Deuteronomy 11:3, to the sacred stone of Bethel, which gave the place its name, as it is called a house of God, Genesis 28:22. And, we're talking about a Messiah stone. There's a lot of Messiahs in the Bible. Don't let them fool you. Now, the traces an indication that there might not be a limit. Well, a limit per se, but not a limit where you can know the number. Now the traces of all these religious beliefs are to be found in modern Yezidism. In connection with the temple of Sheikh Adi, there is a sacred spring, and that there are similar ones in different parts of the Yazidi districts. The water of these springs is held to have healing power and is carried by pilgrims to their homes. In these pools, especially in that of Adis, the Yazidi casts coins, jewelry, and other presents, which they think the chief saint takes from time to time, and to this day no one may enter the holy valley with its sacred fountain unless he first purify his body and clothes. The devil worshippers adore likewise sacred trees. They make pilgrimages to them, hangs things on them, and entertain the belief that whoever unties or shakes off a thread of cloth will be afflicted with disease. And one of the things about curses is that if you believe in them, they can have their effect. Whether or not there actually was a curse, you could be told nobody made a curse. People just told you, this is cursed, and you accidentally do something. It's like, I can't believe you're freaking out. I was kidding, Of course, I don't advocate that anybody would lie to make a joke. I don't myself. Again, the Yezidis kiss the stones that satisfy their imagination and make vows to them. Nor is this all. The shouting of the Yazidi pilgrims as they reach the sacred territory, and the noisy ceremony of their Hajj, with its dancing, and its excitement a rite which has brought against them all sorts of accusations, are nothing but remnants before the Quran was revealed. Now, the particularly being loud, well, if you have a group that's being quiet, grouped together, then it gets loud, but they're allowed to be loud and dance in ways that wouldn't be part of the Islamic proceedings. They play musical instruments. Islam does not allow that in houses of worship. Such, then, are the steps that the religion of Yazid took before it came to shape itself into its present form. It is made of 5 different elements that contributed by the founder: Persian, Islamic, Christian, and what remained of ancient faiths that weren't based on some sort of monotheism prophet. Christians want to be monotheists, so you can say monotheistic, so I guess you can throw that one in there too. But does not such a state of affairs find a historical parallel in some other religions? Take, for example, Christianity. In it we find that distinctive characteristics of the founder have been wrapped up in many foreign elements brought by those who came from other religions. And that's the thing. If we talk about one type of the Yazidi, we're talking about one type, one sect, or maybe one speaker about the group. So we're talking about a group that's sort of halfway became a Sufi order, kind of halfway didn't. Definitely outside of Islam, but not, in Christianity, well, is there the Jesus movement, and then there's a Paul movement. The Paul movement was much more influential, but the Paul movement contains elements of the Jesus movement. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It's hard to tell what. Same thing with Judaism. It's hard to tell exactly what was revelation, what was inspiration, what was tradition, what was commentary, what was intentionally changed. That wasn't really any of them. But I think that the Jews did better with their book in preserving it than the Christians did. But this may be traced to... Okay, there was an Islamic myth of the primal pair falling from their estate in heavenly bliss, Adam landing on a mountain in Ceylon, and Eve in Jeddah on the western coast of Arabia. After 100 years, they met near Mecca, and here God constructed for them a tabernacle on the site of the present Kaaba. The Kaaba has been rebuilt a lot of times, even in the modern time. 8 times in the past 1,500 years, and even more before that. There's remnants that tie back to 10,500 BCE. There's possible reason to think of something happening even before, much like, humans go back way, way, way further than we think. Atlantis, okay, yeah, maybe there was an Atlantis that was a trans-African culture, but perhaps, just like in Northeast Africa, you find a couple million years origins of some of that. Some of the aspects of this Atlantis tale, the circular bit was really a natural structure, but perhaps what happened there, Homo erectus or something passed on the tales of that and it changed to something else, much like some of the stuff that happened with Hindu religion, as some people call those paths. But there's a philosophical method to prove assumptions by theorizing, and a historical method to endeavor to verify by obtaining data. Warda the Rose is the name of a collection of hymns by George Warda. I'm just going to leave there for the moment.